It was real, it happened, and I have so many feelings. Hello everybody, and welcome to the final installment of Gilmore Week. And before I hop in, I just want to sincerely thank you guys for taking the journey of Gilmore Week with me. It has been such a joy to talk about Gilmore Girls nonstop with all of you. Like, it really has just put me in such good spirits. It's been great. And to all my subscribers that aren't Gilmore Girl fans, I promise this is the last dedicated Gilmore video for a little while. But it would be wrong of me to not end off this wonderful week with my review of Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life, because, oh, all the feels were had, guys. But before we say anything about this show at all, I want to state very clearly, this video will have spoilers. I will be saying spoilers about Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life very explicitly. It'll live on YouTube, so when you're done with Year in the Life, come back. It'll be right here waiting for you. You've been warned. So obviously there is a whole lot to talk about, and I feel like the best way to sort out all my thoughts is to first talk about the theme of the show. And to me, the theme of the revival really seemed to be the circle of life. Lorelai even says it twice. She says in the winter episode to Emily, full freaking circle, and then in the fall episode she also says to Emily, to the circle of life, and I really took that to mean a lot. And I think that was such a smart move made by the writers, because to me it felt like the perfect way to incorporate and acknowledge and pay tribute to Ed Herman, Richard Gilmore. I knew that I was gonna cry a whole lot in this revival because I loved him so much. He was so beloved. And I just thought that they dealt with it really respectfully and really beautifully, like using Richard as a catalyst for each of the journeys that the Gilmore women would take on this revival. And jumping right into that, let's talk about each of the women, starting with Emily, because Emily is definitely the most intensely affected by Richard's death, very simply because it literally changes her whole lifestyle. She's in this position where she's in the last couple of years of her life, but she has to deal with this big life shift that really makes her think about who she is, what makes her happy, and how she wants to spend her last years. And I could not be happier with the way that they led Emily in this series. Like, can I say, damn, I missed Kelly Bishop. What an incredible actress. I just feel like where they took her, it was like we knew this Emily was under the surface the whole time. She had just kind of been dormant. Like, I feel like we almost got a glimpse at her in the episode in the original series where Richard's mother dies. She finds that awful letter and she gets very drunk. I feel like that Emily was very similar to the Emily that we get in this revival. The fact that she's this no bullshit Emily that doesn't care about the societal stuff anymore and just is doing her own thing, I feel like it's so great, and I feel like it's also really gonna surface a better Lorelai-Emily relationship in the future. Like, I could see them years from now really developing a better relationship because she's more laid back. Also, the most shocking thing about this revival by far was the fact that Emily kept a single maid throughout the entire thing. And that was both really hilarious but also really lovely, because like in a series of not possibly foreseeable events, she takes in Bertha's like pretty much entire family and makes them her own sort of support system family, and that's just kind of really great. It's just a side of Emily that I never thought we would see, and I'm so glad that we have. And huge shout out to Rose Abdu for playing both Gypsy and Bertha so incredibly. Like, that really was just like such a cool thing. And then we have Lorelai, who's in the middle section of her life and is just starting to realize her mortality. Richard is really sparking that in her. And she's in somewhat of a rut. Like, she's got a routine down, and it's not that the routine is bad, but it's almost like she's become just used to it, and so she isn't questioning if these things are making her actively happy anymore. Now with the mortality thing, she's starting to see that, and I feel like this really actively pushes her to make changes that she just wasn't willing to think about or change before. And I thought the way that that played out, the way that she decides to make the changes in her life, and the way that that fuels her was just so Lorelai. It's so well done. Like the idea that Lorelai would feel like she needs to do something extreme to make these changes, like go and recreate Wild, which was hilarious. And then she goes to do the extreme thing, but it doesn't go as planned, and she ends up kind of falling into the thing that she wanted in the first place and having that aha moment. And if Lauren Graham does not get nominated for an Emmy for that scene with her on the phone with Emily in front of the Vista, I quit. I don't know what it is that I quit, but I quit something and it's gonna mean something. Honestly, my main thing going into this revival was that if Luke and Lorelai, by the end of this damn thing, were not still together, if they were broken up, I would have been done. I would have been game over done. Like, I'm done with this bullshit. And I said very loudly to myself before fall started, like, they have one episode to fix this shit, and they did it really, really wonderfully, and I thought it was good that some conflict came up there, even though it was kind of like indirectly to Luke. I thought it was good, and they ended up together, so that's all I really cared about. I obviously cared about other things, but that was like the main thing that would have been like a break everything deal. And then we have Rory, who definitely has the most controversial storyline among fans. She is really just in the beginnings of her adult life, and she can't seem to settle on anything. She feels very lost both emotionally and professionally. And she's in this weird place where she has been successful in the career of her choice. She's been successful, but something just isn't sitting right, like it's not enough. Something is missing. And cutting right to the chase, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I was very happy that she was having yet another affair with a taken man, just as I was not happy that Logan, as a taken man, was having an affair with Rory. I think they could have done that differently. I think that story could have been different, but what I will say is that it did reinforce that Rory is in a place right now where she isn't entirely herself. She's very scattered. She can't even decide on where she wants to live. And so I would like to think that that's why she's acting morally against herself, and not just because that plays well into the last 4 words, which we will talk about. Initially, I judged the Logan-Rory thing pretty harshly, but after rewatching it, I feel a bit more relaxed now. I really do feel like it did reinforce that. But setting that aside, what I really appreciated in Rory's storyline here was them taking a character like Rory, who in the first series we saw for all intents and purposes to be very successful, very clean, and them taking her in particular and seeing her really struggling. And especially at her age, at 32, because that is real, especially in like this day and age, that is very real. Life is not perfect, people make mistakes, and also your path is not always clear. Most of the part, it's not that clear. And I think it was really important to see that portrayed in Rory because of how we saw her in the first series. Like, for the most part, Lorelai even says it, she had it pretty easy. I'm not saying she didn't work really hard, she did, but you know, she got a lot of what she wanted, and she almost always knew what her next step was. And I thought Alexis Bledel did an amazing job. That's the thing I want to say about all of the characters on this show. I thought every single actor did an amazing job settling right back in. I believed every single one of them, and that was just so beautiful. And while I'm sure some people found it to be a bit cliche, I actually really did believe the whole storyline of Rory eventually writing a book about her mom and them and their experience and their grandparents. And I thought it especially made sense now because it's something that I feel like her grandfather would just love, you know, like it would make him really proud, and that made me have all the feels. Just Gilmore Girls, it's cleaner. Plus, we got Jess helping her out with that, so you know. So overall, I thought that the theme of the show worked really well. I thought it was perfect for a revival, and I thought that everything played very well into the last 4 words. And you know what? Let's talk about them. Rory's prego, and it's almost certainly Logan's baby. I can't believe that people are hypothesizing that it might be the Chewbacca Wookiee one-night stand thing. If you're somebody that thinks that, no, I'm shutting that down. I'm shutting it down. Also, if that had happened by fall, she would already be showing a little bit. Like, she would definitely be showing a little bit. So I'm saying no. I think I'm in the minority on this one, which is totally fine, but I really loved the last 4 words, and not only that, but I remember when people were hypothesizing this like 8 years ago. I remember that. It made sense to me, and I'll explain why. Assuming that Logan is the father, which we all know Amadou, Logan has always been very similar to Christopher, so that's very circle of life. It's nice to think that Luke and Lorelai would have a child to help raise. We know that they would be extraordinarily supportive, and considering that a lot of us wanted Luke and Lorelai to have a child together, this kind of wish fulfills that. And overall, Rory is not in a bad place in her life to have a baby, and that's my big thing. Because I've heard a lot of people say that they don't feel like these last 4 words words make sense now 8 years later. And I can understand that, but to me, to be honest, I feel like it makes a lot more sense now than it did 8 years ago. Like, if the show had ended with this, like, when in the original series, I think I would have been really, really upset. Rory would have been so much younger. She would have been right out of college. She wouldn't have had the chance to tackle her career. Like, I feel like it makes so much more sense now. Rory is 32. She is well-traveled. She's gotten to see the world. She got to go to college. She got to tackle her dream job. And so if she chooses to have a baby, raise a child now, then I feel like that she's not in a bad place. She will have so much more support than Lorelai had when she was raising Rory. And I know the other thing that makes a lot of people upset is that they considered this to be a cliffhanger, and to me, I didn't consider this to be a cliffhanger. I think if Rory had said, I think I'm pregnant, then it would have been a cliffhanger. Just because I feel like I can so well envision what would play out. So if this is where the series has to end, then I'm happy with it, and I'm happy that we finally got to know what was in Amy Sherman-Palladino's brain. Because ultimately, regardless of how you feel about her and her actions towards the show in the past, she's the one responsible for this crazy kooky town. And to me, the only thing that seemed like it might have been pushed into a cookie cutter to fit that picture was the Logan Rory thing. And again, I'm not saying that I would do what Rory did or that I'm happy about it, but I do feel like in some ways it served the story. And who knows, maybe Jess will become Rory's Luke. I mean, probably not, because he's still Luke's nephew. And again, I would choose Luke and Lorelai over Jess and Rory any single day, but a girl can dream. Those are my thoughts on the major plot points, the analysis stuff. So let's quickly talk about some stuff that I also loved. Getting to see Luke and Jess in a normal, functioning adult relationship was amazing. Their banter was amazing. I could have just had an entire show about Luke and Jess and I would be so thrilled. When you see in the window Jess grab Luke's cap and throw it, great. The whole life and death brigade scene, I really didn't think we were gonna get one of those like in its entirety, and particularly the goodbye Wizard of Oz scene. That was just such a good idea. I missed Colin and Finn so much. Stay photogenic, I beg of you. Mr. Kim? I truly didn't see that coming. My coworker said that she expected that to happen. I didn't see that happening in a trillion years. I have so many more questions. Them finally confirming that Michelle is gay. It was about time. I'm glad that they did that, and I loved the fact that the entire series, he was just trying to figure out how he was gonna attain a baby. He thought he was purchasing one. He thought he was making it. It was just great. Overall, I just loved how big a role that he and Kirk played, because y'all know I love him. Watch my video. Speaking of Kirk, I want my new like text tone on my phone to just be Kirk saying Uber. That, and I found his last scene where he thinks he's ruined the wedding and he wakes up to a text from Lorelai saying it's perfect while snuggling with Petals, just to be so endearing. Like, that was such a nice moment. When Francie came on screen, I screamed. And speaking of that scene, I want to say up front right now that by far in this revival, my favorite character was Paris. Liza Wheel, I don't know how you do it, but oh my god. Her with her leg on the door, like, I want a gif of that for every situation in my life forever. And the whole scene with her and Doyle and the kids and the nanny and the upstairs, oh, it was just, ugh. Paris, she should win an award too, truly. I loved the fact that we saw Jason Styles. I didn't know that was gonna happen. He has aged so well, but I screamed when he came on screen too. I have to say, the only person that I felt like afterwards that I really wish that I had seen that we didn't was Max Medina, because when they went to Chilton, I was like, he should be there. That's where we should see him. But we did get to see Headmaster Charleston and some stand-in for Chad Michael Murray as Tristan. The Stars Hollow musical, I will say that when I watched it the first time at like, it must have been 4:40 in the morning by the time we reached that episode. I definitely felt like it was a little long, but it wasn't bad. Like, rewatching it, it wasn't bad. I think they just should have gotten rid of like one song and thrown a town member that we already know in it. I think that was the biggest mistake. Like, Sutton Foster and the other man were both very, very good. It was just like we wanted to see the people we already knew. Taylor has not aged a day. Did anybody else notice that? Like, it was crazy. Good for you. Luke's speech at the end of the series about Lorelai was everything. I sobbed. I really liked Dean's scene. There was something about it that was so nice. It just reminded me of like the beginning of the series Dean before like his storyline got kind of screwed up. And it was so nice to see that he's left Stars Hollow. I blatantly said I didn't think he would have left Stars Hollow, and he did. Good on you, Dean. And as much as I wish they had incorporated Logan differently into the series, it was really nice seeing Logan as much as we did. He was a character I absolutely adored. Jess was amazing and everything was perfect. I cried when Sue Ricky came on screen, Jenna and I literally held one another. I also cried when we first saw Paulinka the dog. I should say I cried a lot in this revival. I cried a whole lot. I loved all the therapy scenes. That was great. There's so much that I could talk about. But I think the last thing that I want to mention was just how wonderful I thought the scene of Rory walking through the empty Gilmore house and like seeing the old scenes happening and Richard in his chair. That was just so beautiful, and rewatching it I realized just how much that scene stood out to me, and again, just a beautiful way to pay tribute and memorialize Ed Herman. And that's where I'm gonna cap off this video. I know that there are a trillion other things that we could talk about, and I encourage you to leave a comment and we can talk about them in the comment section below. I would love to know what your favorite parts were and what you thought about it. But I just want to say that I'm so happy that this happened, you know? It would have really sucked had I left this wishing that it hadn't happened and that it had left off where the original series left off. And that's just not how I felt. And I want to thank the whole cast and crew and writers and everyone for coming back and making this happen, and Netflix for making this happen, because what a joy this has been. It's been amazing. And that concludes Gilmore Week. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now would be a great time if you're still watching the video, because again, this is probably a trillion minutes long. If you want to talk more about Gilmore Girls with me and all of that jazz, here's all of my social media. I am happy to talk about it any damn time. And if you like this video, a cool way to show me is hitting that thumbs up button and sharing this video with a friend, because I'm sure that you have other Gilmore Girl friends that you would like them to see this video. This is just going awry now. I gotta end this. I love you, Stars Hollow citizens, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!